All right, so we'll get started with introductions. Let some people still join so they don't miss too much of anything. And so we are cognizant of what the time that we have. We only have about 45, 50 minutes, so I want to just get started. So my name is Pat Greeny. I'm one of the assistant deans of admission for Colgate University. So I read applications when that time of year is happening. I also travel for the school when travel is allowed. But I cover certain territories, so I cover certain schools, those students in those schools. So the territories I have are Western Massachusetts, Western New York, Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, and both Dakotas. So if you're from any of those places, welcome. If you have any questions later on, feel free to reach out to me. But we do have a student that's going to be joining us on this webinar tonight, so I'll let him introduce himself.
Yeah, so my name is Joseph Berwick. I'm from Hopesville, New York, which is on Long Island. I'm a first year, so graduating in year 24. I'm hoping to major in biochemistry and do a minor in mathematics systems biology, and that's to do a pre-dental track. And then just some clubs I'm a part of on campus, or at least I'm interested in because, the whole pandemic, is the Indoor Rock Climbing Club, the Colgate Spikeball Association, Beekeeping Club, the Financial Club, the Colgate's Quiz Bowl team, and then the Friends of Hamilton Manor.
Wow, you're going to be very busy. Yeah, so just so everybody knows kind of where this webinar is going, what we're going to be talking about. So for the first 30-ish minutes, we'll just talk about kind of how to navigate your college search. I'll be able to share my screen kind of just to show how the application process works or how things have kind of changed during this COVID pandemic. So just so everyone knows, we'll kind of be talking generally about using Colgate examples because that's what we know, that's our expertise, but we don't want to speak for every single college. We just want to give you some helpful resources and tips right off the bat. And then for like the last 15 minutes or so, we will open it up for questions. So any questions you might have, feel free to put those in the Q&A. After we're done talking, I'll let you know when we're about finished for those. So if we are ready, we'll get started. So for the first part, we want to just talk about how Colgate kind of dealt with the pandemic, not only in the spring, but for this fall as well. So back in the spring, back in March, we kind of just shut everything down. We sent all the students home. Staff, we were working remote as well. We didn't have any visitors to the admission process. So that kind of disrupted a lot of things. So that disrupted the application process, the deciding process for Joseph, interrupted the college life for our current students at that point. But when we came back, we knew we wanted to be together. We knew that we wanted, because Colgate is the best when we're in person. We do the best when we're 6 feet apart rather than thousands of miles apart. It's great to be on the screen. All the resources that Colgate had was still available. So that was access to professors, that access to staff members if you needed things like counseling services or just wanted to talk to somebody, all those people were still around. So those resources were still there, but it just became virtual. So for this fall, we said, nope, we want to be able to come back to campus. What can we do to do that? So we decided, not me, I was not part of it, but the powers that be decided that they wanted to have a universal quarantine. So no matter if you were from 5 minutes up the road, no matter if you're from Long Island like Joseph, or if you were from India, halfway across the world. So you had to come to campus, you had to quarantine if you wanted to be in person. If you wanted to be virtual, you have that option. But if you wanted to be in person, you came to campus, you quarantined for 2 weeks. We had, us as staff members, we delivered food to all the dorms. There was outdoor time for every single student. Even our president was part of the quarantine. I don't know if you have been following CBS or the Today Show had a special on him, but basically he said, if the students are doing it, I'm doing that. So he had his own room in West Hall in one of the first year dorms. So he was part of the quarantine process for everybody. When the students on his hall got food, he was able to get food. So there was no special arrangements for him at all. And then as those 2 weeks were up after the quarantining, we're deciding to do kind of like a phased reopening. So we're calling them gates. So Colgate, really unique with the name, I guess. But we decided that we wanted to open up in different gates. So not just quarantine's over, everyone do whatever you want, go wherever you want, be a part of whatever group you want. But they are going to do a phased reopening. So right now we're in gate 1. So quarantine was gate 0. Gate 1 is happening right now. So it's still, you're staying 6 feet apart. You're still wearing your mask while you're outside, but you're able to have a little bit more freedom. And as the campus does these things together, move throughout the gates throughout the fall, with the hopefully at the very end being able to not have these huge restrictions on everybody. But for our admission, well, I guess first, how about Joseph, how would you kind of talk a little bit about your experience with this quarantine?
Okay, yeah, sure. So I got here, I guess it's been over 3 weeks now. So I got here on a Sunday, and pretty much like when we got into the dorm, we were kind of just like stuck in there for the first 2 days because we didn't have the outdoors time until the Tuesday. But the quarantine itself, like it did hurt, like in terms of like, you know, like everyone was out, like everyone wanted to like make friends and stuff. And I did get in trouble by my CL because I was socializing in someone's door frame trying to make friends. But other than that, it was fine, honestly. Like I remember my mom was like very like upset about it. She's like, "Oh no, like Joe, who are you?" But it was something that like we were all in it together, and we were all like able to manage. The food itself was like it was better than like some other colleges that I'm seeing, like their meal plans and stuff. But especially now that we're allowed to go out now, I am very happy that we don't have to deal with the food anymore. And the outdoors time was definitely like very like helpful, and you know we were allowed to do some activities like I played frisbee and spike ball, and through that I made a couple friends. So like overall the quarantine wasn't ideal, but I guess because like everyone was in it and everyone was doing it, everyone like understood, and we were all like, hey, like, you know, we want to get through this so that we can have like an actual college experience.
Yeah, I think that seemed to be the idea of everybody, that we'll deal with this now because we want something better and bigger afterwards. So how this has kind of changed the admission process, especially at Colgate, is that we're changing things, like making different things optional for the application. So we are test optional for the next year. So if you're a current senior, we are test optional for you. So that means if you want to submit your SAT, ACT scores, you can, but if you don't, you're not going to be at a disadvantage. Also means that we are going to be looking at your essays being, those supplemental essays, those are also optional. So you submit your completed application first, and then you're able to answer those supplemental questions. The supplemental questions are already online, so you can take a look at those just to see what they are, kind of get thinking about it, get your brain rolling on what you could possibly answer if you wanted to answer those questions. But again, if you don't, you're not going to be at a disadvantage. So that is changes to our holistic process. Also within our office, that meant that all of our things that makes Colgate admission great, being able to see our beautiful campus, the tours, the students, we had to go all virtually. We had to offer webinars like this online. We had to have a virtual tour, virtual information session, all those things. And I'll talk a little bit later on how to navigate like our website to find those opportunities. But we kind of had to change the entire process to really figure out like what did students need and how did they find that fit for a school, and how were they applying, how would they be able to attend our school. So Joseph, do you want to just talk a little bit about kind of what was the impact of switching into a virtual setting for trying to figure out where to apply?
Yeah, sure. So the pandemic itself really only affected my like decisions on like the last minute, like after I already applied to all my colleges. I applied to a couple of colleges, a few public schools, a few private schools. And so the pandemic for me, like I always wanted to go to like a liberal arts school. So the pandemic kind of showed me like which universities kind of like, looked at me as like a number or like as a person, and honestly, which universities had like a plan. because with the pandemic, obviously there was a lot of like uncertainty, and it was like for Colgate, they seem very like open, and whenever I would email, like whether it be the like admissions office or financial aid office, they would get back to me within like a day. I had some schools where I am still waiting back on some emails, but at this point I'm kind of ignorant of that. And then also with just them being open, like Colgate, like this webinar is just like one example, but they Colgate for me at least was always like, hey, like the pandemic is not ideal, but we are either working on a plan or we have a plan. Where many colleges kind of were just like, oh, like we'll figure that out later. So Colgate was very like, at least for me, they seem very organized, and that's just something I just appreciate from them. But at the end of the day, for me, what came down to it was my financial aid package that I received, because Colgate, I mean, the sticker price is a little expensive, but at least in my experience, and at least a lot of people that I've met and talked to, the sticker price is not something that like it's not something that you should just look at and be discouraged. Because at first, honestly, that's how I felt with Colgate, but then I got a few waivers for my application, and I mean every other bit of Colgate I loved. So when they came back with the financial aid offer, I was like, I have to go here, and I was so excited to put in my deposit. So yeah.
Yeah. So now that we've kind of talked about how we've kind of dealt with the pandemic, but we'll kind of roll back the clock a little bit into like how Joseph was kind of building his college list, what we kind of will give you tips and tricks even during the beginning of your junior year, beginning of senior year. It's not too late to kind of build these kind of smaller lists. So kind of talk about first, there's kind of three big things. Joseph talked a little bit about one of them that kind of comes down to a lot of people's college decisions. That's a hard word, apparently. We have the financial aid that Joseph just talked about. We have the location, and then also the size. So those are kind of three pillars that everyone kind of looks at, because are you looking at the size of the school, big, small, medium size? Are you looking for D1 athletics? That's really going to be all up to you. So we can start with size as well. So the size of a college really will translate into your classroom experience or your social experience. So just to give the example of Colgate, we have a little over 3,000 students. We also have D1 athletics. So you kind of get that small school feel. You also have the big school feel as well. So you have the big school feel with those athletics, small school feel because we have 9-to-1 as the student to teacher ratio. We are kind of mid-size for a liberal arts school. So you still have those connections with professors, but you also have the research university aspect of it. So we are a community oriented place. Joseph has kind of talked about that, of like, even though we have a quarantine, we are all doing this together. So Joseph, do you want to talk a little bit about like how you came across size? How did you eliminate size? And of course, this is all your personal experience.
Yeah, sure. So I guess I should start off that I come from a relatively large high school. The high school I went to has a graduating class of 1,000, but it's 2 buildings, so it's more like 500, which is still a relatively like very large school. So honestly, like the class at Colgate, it's like it's a similar size. At least to my knowledge, Colgate's like one of the larger liberal arts colleges. But again, it's especially since it's spread out through, like, we have all the freshmen and sophomores up in the quad or up the hill, and then all the juniors and seniors down the hill. So it's very spread out, and so because of that, it doesn't feel big at all. It definitely feels smaller than my high school. But I mean, the size, like, I personally wanted to be in a place where I'm not just like in a sea of 30,000 other kids. And it also helps with research opportunities, because Colgate doesn't really have, I mean, they do technically have a graduate program for, I think, teaching, but they don't really have like many students whatsoever. So it allows me as an undergrad, if I want to do biochem, it allows me to get research in with professors. And honestly, like, the small class size is actually very nice. Like my chem lab, with the pandemic, of course, there's only 5 of us that are going to be working in the lab it's actually tomorrow, so that'll be fun doing the first time. And then also just like with being a part of like a community, like I like walking around campus and like seeing many different people and just saying hi to them, and just like being able to like meet up with friends. on campus. It's just a very nice thing. So the size for Colgate, it's small, but it's definitely not something that is like discouraging. And honestly, I really enjoy it.
Yeah, so that tends to be one of the big things that students will look for. So kind of when you're thinking about colleges, look at what your high school is, what are you comfortable with, and then also what would you want in a college experience? Do you want the big school? Some people do. They want the big lecture halls. They want the big research universities, or sometimes you want a smaller school. So it's really going to be all up to you, but make that choice for you personally. Second thing that we'll talk about is location. There's schools all over the nation. There's schools all over the world. So you kind of have to think about, where am I located now? Where would I want to move after this? So Joseph, you didn't go that far from Long Island, but it's still a pretty good trek. But some students are from Hamilton Central, which is right down the road. Some students are from India, all the way across the world. But they really had to think about, where do I want to go to school? Do I want to be in a small town in upstate New York, like Colgate is? Do I want to be in a city? Do I want a suburban location? So there's a lot of different aspects of a location that you can have. But the best thing to kind of think about is, some schools, they might be in a city, but they have a campus within that city. So really kind of think about, what do you want out of the college experience? Do you want to be able to walk off campus and immediately go into that city? Or do you want to be in kind of a smaller rural town like Hamilton, New York is, where Colgate has a really good reputation and really good connection with the Hamilton community, whether that is helping out the elderly, whether that is helping out with students and tutoring, babysitting for professors, dog sitting for professors. It's really going to be all up to you for that. But Joseph, do you want to talk a little bit about kind of how location played into your college deciding?
Yeah. So when I did my college visit, and I visited about 2 years ago, I just remember my mom complaining about all like the rolling hills, and honestly, the fact that we were just in the middle of nowhere, and we were like, there's supposed to be a college in like 2 miles, and there's cows, which I mean, it was a nice sight. So again, so I was from, suburbia, Long Island, and obviously it was in like the shadow of the city. So I just kind of want to experience like a different type of life. I being near the city, I kind of just didn't want to be in the city, like for the university. So Colgate, even though it was, again, Colgate's kind of in the middle of nowhere, but that's kind of like to its charm. Um, there's a lot of like wilderness here on Colgate. So for my freshman summer class, we actually did a walk. This was 2 days ago. We did a walk out in the trails. So we just like walked for like an hour and a half. And I mean, it was a beautiful walk. I mean, lots of trees and stuff. And then even like, again, like it's just like experiencing. I just want to try out a rural area. And I guess another thing that I do appreciate from it is like, because again, we're in the rural area, there's like not really as much light pollution. So the stars at night is actually very pretty. And I've actually gone like stargazing like twice this, past post quarantine area. And it's actually really cool, like seeing the Milky Way and like seeing stars. And because like where I'm from, I'm like, oh look, I can see like the three little stars in Orion's belt, and like that's about it. So I mean, I don't think I'll live in this rural area. Like later in life, I don't think I want to live this rural, but it's definitely something that I knew I would, if I didn't try it, I don't think I ever would have. So I thought that it would just be, good to try.
Yeah. Yeah. So like talking about the size and location, Joseph talking about like, what could he see himself doing? What could he see himself taking his experience from high school, the location, the size of that, and what would he want from a college experience? So kind of everybody has to come across that in their own way. Last thing is financial aid. So you have schools that are going to be need-based financial aid like us, where we're going to be looking at what can your family provide. We have you fill out the FAFSA, which is federal loans, and then the CSS profile, which is institutional loans. And we come out with a number, so you have that sticker price. We have how much your family would contribute, and then Colgate will bridge the difference. So there's not going to be anybody that is $1,000 short or $500 shorts. We are meeting 100% of that demonstrated need. You also have institutions that are merit-based. So the merit-based are going to give you scholarships based on grades, based on athletic accomplishments, based on the arts, it's really going to be kind of all up to that institution, how they determine that. But turning to Colgate, we have, like I said, completely need-based. That did not change during the pandemic. We are still meeting 100% of financial need for all students that are on campus and learning virtually. Colgate has even gone as far as the current students that are on campus. If something happened during this pandemic, like a loss of a job or loss of a business, or just something happened, they reworked financial plans to make sure that nobody had to leave because of that. But Joseph, do you want to talk a little bit? You said that that was kind of a part of your college decision. Do you want to just briefly talk about that? About financial
Yeah, I
aid?
guess so. Yeah, so I'm a twin, and then I also have two older siblings. So we're like, the youngest ones. And then we're on Long Island, so it's an expensive area. And we're like, I don't know, it's just I didn't really expect to get as much as I did, especially from being like from Colgate, because again, like of where like I live and like how much, not necessarily like how much I made, but like because again, like I'm able to live on Long Island, but again, I was like amazed with how much money that Colgate was willing to, give me as grants. And it just made Colgate like a very affordable option. And honestly, for me, it was cheaper than going to some public schools. So that was a very like, it was a good driving factor in the way that I like ended up coming here.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the big thing that we just wanted. Reason why we bring this up is to not cross any schools off your list just because of the sticker price. There is a lot of opportunities for every place to be accessible to everyone. So Joseph, is there any, we talked about kind of the big three, the financial aid, the size, location. Was there any other qualities that you were looking for in a college or university?
Yeah, so it's definitely like, I definitely think a big one, especially for Colgate, is like the academic rigor. So for at least biochemistry, Colgate's one of the top, I think top three for biochemistry in at least New York State. And then obviously they're, very good across the nation. And they also have or at least so I've heard, Colgate has a very robust history department, they're very good with like international relations, if you want to do like law. So I knew that I wanted to like go to a place where I could be challenged and get a very rigorous education. I knew I wanted to go to a place where I could do research, like cutting edge research with professors, which would obviously set me apart when I applied for dental college, the dental school. Other than that, the D1 athletics, I'm very excited to go to the games once they're allowed. So probably more like next year, but that's all right. Colgate's basketball team, my neighbors, or my dorm mate, he's 6'11" and he's on the basketball team. So it's very fun seeing him on campus. But they went to the NCAA finals in 2019. Then just Colgate also has a very big hockey scene, very big football scene, and just fun stuff to go around with that. Then I guess also is the social aspect. Colgate it's a work hard, party hard school, but with the pandemic it's different. But it's what I just think is a takeaway from that is just everyone's very friendly. Like whenever I go on walks, people always say hi to me, and I always say hi back. And it's very, everyone's very open, everyone's very friendly, and I've made lots of, friends from that. So it's just like a very nice thing. And so, I'm just like saying good things about Colgate because the thing is I'm here, and like I love all the things about this place. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So kind of pivoting our conversation into like virtual resources. So since a lot of students can't go to college campuses right now, there are a lot of virtual resources out there for you to use. So things that we offer, there are virtual interviews if you're a senior, there's a virtual tour that you can also partake in. There is virtual information sessions, so kind of giving you a full picture, kind of an introduction into Colgate. So I'm going to share my screen for a little bit just to kind of show you where to navigate and find these resources. There's a lot of other things out there like Campus Reel is all videos. one of the big reasons why I'm talking about that. It was started by Colgate grads. So that will give you resources across the country of students that not only this year, but previously have recorded videos about their school, about the social life, about the food, about the research, about just walking, what is the distance between different buildings. So that is a great resource for you as well. But for our website in general, I will share my screen and show you guys what that will look like. So we have our beautiful page right here. So you have fall coming up. It gets a little cold at Colgate sometimes, but we do have the fall colors right there. So to get to the virtual options that we have, we also have, you can go straight to admission and aid. A lot of schools will have their information within admission and aid. That's where you can find contact information for admission counselors. You can find your regional admission counselor there. You can find a lot of them will have big bold letters right at the top of what are they doing for their on-campus tours. Some students are some schools are allowing students and families to come visit. Some aren't, of course, following guidelines every single way. But you can just see we have our virtual tour. You can explore different parts of Colgate. We have a whole page here. We have all of our parts of financial aid. And then if you are able to, you just go to the top, virtual tours, webinars. We have it right at the top, make it very easy for everyone. But you're able to tour the campus, start a virtual tour. You can also download a campus map, so you're able to kind of see where Max Barron, he worked in our office last year. He is going to be your tour guide for that, talking you through anything from Oak Drive to the Pearson Steps to Owen Hall. He's going to talk about all of those things. We also have additional tours here. This is also where you're going to find things like upcoming webinars. And then we have our past webinars. If you wanted to take a look at those, you can take a look at those as well. So all of these things are going to be listed on our website and also everywhere else that you're looking for on their website. So you want to always try to connect with students, connect with admission officers in whatever way you can. If you have a regional AO, you can reach out to them, asking them a couple questions. That's how you're going to connect. A lot of schools will also have connect with the current student on their website. So you can talk with those students, see what their experience was. Joseph is kind of just a prime example. He doesn't work in our office. We just thought he would be a great fit for this webinar, but as you can tell, they love to talk about Colgate. They're going to be honest with you either way. So feel free to ask current students. So Joseph, I want to talk a little bit about how did you use these virtual resources when you were deciding on schools? I know kind of the pandemic shut everything down right as you were deciding. So what did you do? How did you use resources?
So, I mean, Colgate, honestly, they had a lot of very useful resources for me. The virtual tours, even though I did go on a normal tour, I kind of just wanted to see the campus again because it's a very, very pretty campus. And I thought it was very informative and stuff. I was also forced to watch it another time for like our freshman orientation. But yeah, so I did go on a couple of those tours. The webinars like this one, I watched ones about outdoor education. I watched ones about financial aid. I watched ones about like campus life. So I just think that's, it's a good opportunity to just learn more. And especially since like the options are out there, you'd kind of be wasteful if you just don't. And then also the like, as you're saying, the individual like one-on-ones. I talked with my regional advisor. I think we did talk before I accepted, or I mean I did accept, but before I made my decision. And it was just very nice like having her be like, hey, like how you doing with the pandemic, like, and just asking me just like normally and stuff. I talked with outdoor education. I talked with my now my future FSM advisor. And again, it's just all these options are out there. So if you have any like interest like whatsoever, it's very nice to like be able to communicate and be like, hey, like they come back in like a day. So it lets you like see, live, and like just experience life on campus. So
yeah, and I think you bring up a good point that like like I know Brittany is your regional
Yeah.
dean, and she was able, her, much like a lot of people in our office, we understand this is a human process. We want to be able to kind of meet you where you're at. Like, we understood last year that there was a pandemic happening. What do you need from us? What can we offer you? And that's not going to change. And that's going to be a lot of places that you're looking at applying or looking at taking a deeper dive look into information about them. They are all humans. They will answer your emails, and they are going to be a part of your process during it. Answer any kind of questions. If they don't have like for our office, if we don't have the answers, we will reach out or connect you with somebody that does. So somebody in outdoor education, or somebody in the history department or the philosophy department, because we know a lot about the school, but they know more about that program. So we'd rather have you talk to them. But just to kind of wrap this up into on-campus visits, like I mentioned, some schools are offering them, some schools aren't. Obviously, following all state and federal guidelines for that. So Colgate, we are offering self-guided tours as well as kind of a visit experience. So you kind of come for an entire morning or entire afternoon. That starts next Monday. So you're able to kind of see the campus, still get a live tour. But we want to make sure that you're following all the directions, that you are still going to be a part of our community, because these students have worked really hard to make sure that they can stay here and be part or have the living learning experience that they do at Colgate. We want every single visitor on campus to abide kind of by those same rules as well. But I would suggest to always be checking the websites of every school that you're interested in. Everything gets updated. Like, we've changed the wording on our website every couple weeks of what we're offering at that time, what's kind of going on campus, as well as what's going on across the nation. So make sure you're just staying up to date with what's kind of coming up. Are they going to be offering tours in October? Are they just not going to do it for this semester and you got to wait till the spring semester? Just stay up to date with that. And kind of going along with that, just make sure that you're staying organized with all of your visits. It's very easy to kind of get confused on who did you talk to or what webinars did you go on. Did you go on a Colgate webinar? Did you go on a Hamilton College webinar? Don't really know because we're all flat. So make sure you're just keeping some notes and keeping organized with what schools you're visiting or who you talked to or what you talked about. So do you have any closing thoughts, Joseph, before we open it up to questions? And if you have questions right now, or for the people that are in the chat, you can submit those. But Joseph?
Okay, I wasn't prepared for this one. But just, I guess, like, limit your options, like, know where, like, just have an idea of like what you want to do and where you want to go. You don't have to have your whole life planned out. And I mean, a lot of people here on campus, like, I've talked to many people who are still, or who are undecided. I've talked to many people who are like, oh, like, I want to be like some type of doctor. And like, there's options for that. Like, one of the clubs I'm a part of is Pre-Health Pathways. And it's right now they're getting like mentors between like upperclassmen that are like either done or very near to the finish of like the whole like med school application process, and then first years who are like, you know, new to all this. So like, have an idea of what you want and just have that to start limiting colleges. Like, if you want to go like in a small college, you want to go to a large college, just use, I don't know, just like know what you want to look for. And at the end of the day, like, all these colleges, you know, everyone wants you. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that was a good answer. Yeah, so make sure you're just really just looking, be honest with yourself. What can you do? Or what can you think of, like, do I want to be at that big school? Do I want to be at a smaller school? Just be honest with yourself, and talk with somebody about it. Talk with a parent, talk with a grandparent, talk with a teacher about it. Just kind of to be honest with yourself for that. So any questions you guys might have about Colgate or kind of navigating this process, you feel free to put those in the question and answer. We'll be able to answer those. So first question that came in: how is Colgate responding to the coronavirus on campus, and how has that process been in terms of culture and following the rules? So I'll just talk from a staff perspective, and Joseph, I'll pass it over to you for kind of the student perspective. So Colgate is not immune to the coronavirus. We still have had cases that have happened on campus, but when students came, they were tested before they came. They were tested within the first couple of days of being on campus, and then tested a week later. So to be able to come out of the quarantine period, students had to have 3 negative tests. Any student, and it was a very, very small population out after the quarantine. I think we had 25 or 26 students that ended up coming down with coronavirus, and they were all asymptomatic, but they were placed into one of the hotels in town that Colgate had reserved. So they were kind of in isolation, still had all the same things coming for them, like food, and they were still kind of getting stimulated with interactions on Zoom and all of that. But they have done a very good job to make sure to kind of cut it off right at the beginning. And that was the idea of the quarantine right off the bat. But Joseph, do you want to talk a little bit about how it's been for you?
Yeah, so I had to get tested 4 times because they messed up on my 3rd one. I don't really know why. But I mean, right now, Colgate only has 3 active cases, 2 staff, faculty, and like 1 student. And that's because Colgate sends out it's called the HAT dashboard. It's like health and testing. I don't know. So, and I look at there every now and then because, obviously this is something that's affecting me. And if cases go up too much, then we have to go back into quarantine or even shut down. But the cases that to my knowledge, when we were at the 25 cases, that was, I think, when the upperclassmen arrived, because when freshmen arrived, I think there was 8, and then it got to 25 or a little bit more than that. But I mean, overall, in terms of the culture, everyone's wearing a mask. At least most of whenever we're out walking around, I always see people wearing masks. There was some people that if anyone is caught not wearing masks, then they do get citations, and there was I think on the first day or maybe even second day, there was some of the football players were partying without masks on, and it was actually on the same floor as Casey, which I found hilarious. But I mean, they all got sent home. So Colgate's taking things very seriously because again, most people are here, they're I don't want to redo the quarantine because the food's better, and just it's not fun just being in your room all day. I personally, I love the freedom of walking around. With classes and stuff, if I do have any classes in person, and I have 2 of them, I have to wipe down my table after I use, or after I'm done with campus, or done with the class. I rented out space in the library, and I have to wipe that down after. Whenever I'm dining, they have these flip cards that's it's either sanitary or non-sanitary, and then they have people walking around spraying them and cleaning them. So overall, I mean, for me, Colgate's taking it very seriously, especially to compared to where I was from. At least I think. So I mean, I'm happy about it.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of what was very important. That if there was somebody that wasn't following the rules, it was you, and you signed it right before you came. You said, I will follow the rules. If you don't, you get sent home, and you have to continue with the college experience virtually. They're still taking their classes, but they just aren't part of campus right now. But next question, were there any events offered to incoming freshmen to integrate them in the community during the quarantine period? If so, what were they? There was actually a lot. There is a pretty intensive orientation process normally, but there was a lot of those things that were brought into this virtual world. So Joseph, you want to talk a little bit about how they kind of brought you into Colgate?
Yeah, so I was a part of, it was called Wilderness Adventures through the Outdoor Education Program. In a normal year, you would do stuff like kayaking or rock climbing. And so you would do this for 6 days right before you went to campus, or right before the first day of orientation. So you'd go in with friends that you already made. For this year, because we couldn't go camping for reasons, I was a part of the wilderness adventure of cooking and baking. So I made some nice omelets and banana bread and cookies, which it was fun. I honestly I haven't really cooked that much, so it was a new experience for me. And then some of the people my friend Kieran and also Sarah, I met them through wilderness adventure, and that's opened me up to having friends on campus. and just like walking around like the first outdoor day, I was like, oh, like I already know some people around. So it's just a very nice thing. There's, to my knowledge, there's other programs. There's one for like I think the radio or broadcast station. There's also like if you're in like the Benton Scholars or OUS, like you also show up a little bit early. Um, and then the actual orientation that like we all were in, it was nice. It was a little like oppressive, honestly, like with Zoom, because we'd have to go on like many Zoom calls. So that was a little annoying. But again, like I met some people in my link group, and it's called a link, like, or our orientation group is led by some upperclassmen. We are the Linksters, and they're the, I think, it's weird names. I keep on getting lost with them. But like some of my friends, like Gray and Adam, I met them through the group, and I'm still talking to them. So, yeah.
Next question was, will it be taken into consideration that there have been less opportunities to do internships and summer programs? Yes, all of those things are going to be taken into consideration when we're looking at applications. We understand that there was a lot of things happening that you planned for that didn't end up happening for the summer or last spring or even this fall. Anything from sports to theatrical performances to really anything that you might have been planning, even a summer job, lifeguarding, anything like that. We understand that as an office, and there are spots on your application where you can say, like, I was planning on doing this, but unfortunately that it didn't happen this year. Both the Common App and the Coalition App actually have sections where you can say where you were affected or how you were affected by the pandemic, whether that is something to do with your family, whether that was something to do with your school. That is all open-ended for you to kind of describe how things happened and how it affected you directly. But yeah, that is going to be taken into consideration for sure. For your application, because we are not looking for you to be that the 4-year athlete if it didn't happen. Like, that's just impossible. So just make sure that you're letting us know on your application that this didn't happen, unfortunately, but this was what I was planning on doing, whether that's volunteering, sports, the arts. Please just tell us that stuff. And then the next question is, how would you describe Greek life at Colgate? Is the most prevalent, that was a word, social influence on campus. So I'll just kind of give numbers. So we have 3 sororities, 5 fraternities at Colgate, and you're not rushing. You're not being a part of those organizations until the beginning of your sophomore year. So like Joseph being a first year, he doesn't have that opportunity yet. If he wants that to be a part of his college experience, he can, but he has a full year to really figure out his life at Colgate before adding that onto it. And the people that I've talked to, they kind of describe it as just another club or just another organization that they're a part of, and they're able to have it be as much part of their life or as little part of their life. They might join and go to a couple meetings, show up to a couple events, fundraising, whatever it happens to be. But they are the president of the fraternity. It's really going to be kind of all up to you for that. But I know, Joseph, you haven't been here for that long, but do you want to kind of just talk a little bit about your knowledge of it so far?
Okay. So I know a little bit because the person in charge of my WA, he is in one of the frats. I don't exactly know which frat it was. Then also when if I'm going to Hamilton town, I do on the Main Street, you do have to pass some of the, is it Broad Street or Main Street?
Broad Street.
Broad Street, okay, well, that's close. So you do have to pass the frats. At least for me, in terms of my experience, I haven't really with the pandemic, it's nothing's really happening. I do know that on the weekend, a lot of where the police was centered, or the campus police, not, they were centered there to just make sure that people were following rules and that type of stuff. But from my experience, or at least from what I've been told, it's definitely something where if you really want to go to every single party, then I mean you could do that. But even if you're not a part of it, you can still do plenty of events on campus. You can still obviously make friends on campus. You can still do stuff. So it's not something where it's necessary to be a part of a frat. But it's definitely there if you want to do that and you want that type of social scene.
Yeah, it's going to be completely optional for you. So, last question before we wrap up: when do you need to declare your major by? You have until the end of your sophomore year to declare your major. So you have the time to take those core classes or those intro level classes to really figure out what you want to be doing. And some people come in and they really know what they want to do, like Joseph. Some people will stick with that. Some people will completely change. It's kind of all up to you. With if there's something else that catches your eye. But that's kind of the beauty of liberal arts school and beauty of being able to declare your major by the end of your sophomore year. But Joseph, if you want to talk a little bit about the, you want to do a specific major. Are you taking any classes currently that are going towards that?
Yeah. So I knew going in I wanted to do biochemistry. And that was just because I'm like, oh, I like bio, I like chemistry. So I was like, okay, that fits. But you can't really declare your major until you need to have someone in the department to be like your new chair, because when you go into Colgate, your advisor is your first year seminar advisor. So you have them for like maybe 2 years if you want to wait that long. Again, like it's definitely like something where you kind of feel it out. Like I'm taking, for my chemistry major, I'm taking the accelerated chem course, which you need to perform well either on the AP Chem or the SCP2. And it's a little challenging. We're talking about quantum mechanics and stuff, and it's something. But like biochemistry itself is like mostly chemistry, which I think you only need like 2 bio courses, which was kind of surprising. So there's also molecular biology if you want to do more of a bio focus. So it's definitely something where you should honestly like kind of explore, because you can't really do much to begin with anyway. So the exploration process is just like useful. I am also taking Calc 3 right now, and that's going towards my major and my minor. And then I have my core class, which is like you have to take like 4 classes for like the liberal arts experience, and then you also have to take some areas of inquiry, which are just like humanities, science, and then communications, I think. So the other 2 classes I'm taking Earth's resources and then what's in your cup. And the what's in your cup like talks about like, if you get a cup of coffee, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean for like fair trade? If you're like if they're growing the cocoa beans in like Nicaragua and it's getting transported, and like, it's like it's a little weird, but it is enjoyable for me. So that's like fleshing out the rest of my like required classes. So I only have to take 4 classes, and so at Colgate you only take 4 classes because it's kind of more like in depth in each class. But yeah, for now, like I'm gonna take a bio course next semester, and I'll see if I like bio or chem more. But
yeah, so you are able to kind of have that foundation, and once you're declaring your major, you've definitely taken a couple classes within that department or with some of those professors there. Like Joseph mentioned, you'll get a new academic advisor at that point of declaring your major. So you're able to make friends even before you're declaring your major. So you have those 4 semesters, 16 classes to really figure it out. You're not applying to a major once you're applying to Colgate. It's going to be during the process. So that was all the questions we had. Like I said, if you have any questions later on, I am going to put my email in the chat. So if there is anything that comes up in the next couple weeks or next couple months, feel free to send me an email. If there's somebody that you really want to talk to, let me know. And if you want to talk to Joseph, I can put you in contact with him as well. But thank you so much, everyone. This has been fun. Thank you so much, Joseph, as well.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity.
Yep. Everyone have a great night.